is interesting. When you go live on Facebook Live, what is the hashtag system for getting it out there so that people can find it?
You have to go, you have to paste it to the different groups, So this one is launched in Final Cut Pro Radio Facebook group. That's where this is originating. So
subscribers to that should get a ping notification?
Well, YouTube subscribers will.
Okay.
Yes. But Facebook, I pasted on I pasted on our group. It's linked. So if they want to watch it, they can watch it. In other words, let me see something. I'm going to put it up.
No, I remember that because I used to run, those Hangouts that we did for a long time. So
Exactly.
I remember the process where you paste the link and then people can come, but they have to actively come in. I was wondering if there's any essentially broadcast notification that says, okay, because I get them from you. When Facebook, when you go live, I think because we are connected as Facebook and probably Messenger friends, when you go live, I get a ping. It says Richard is currently live.
Oh,
somewhere.
yeah, you're right, because we're friends.
Right.
That's why that is. So I'm not sure, to be honest with you, how the pinging works in Facebook. I just don't know.
Ah, well, that might be something worth thinking, because if you can build a community that gets pinged when you go live, that will probably do more to zap audience acquisition than anything else.
Yes, no, absolutely. Facebook Live, YouTube Live does pinging. Absolutely. It pings because people can subscribe to your channels. There's Tony. Hey, Tony, what's up?
How's it going, Richard?
Pretty darn good. How about yourself?
Can't complain for a nice, lovely day on Friday.
Well, you can't complain, but we all do it anyway.
That's why we're here, right?
That's exactly why we're here. That's the point of all this.
That's exactly right. We are here to complain. No, we're not here to complain, but people do that. It's just automatic.
We're here to examine and clarify. Just keep that in your mind.
Sure. I'm ready.
So what's the weather like there, Tony? You're in Texas, right?
Yeah, we're in San Antonio, and right now it's like 70 something, and
nice.
It's beautiful. It's great. It's bright, sunny.
I got 78 myself.
Oh yeah,
so that's pretty nice too.
Yeah, normally it's in 90s, but we kind of had a little bit of a temperature drop, so it's been really nice. It's been really good.
I wonder if that's residual spin-off from all the hurricanes and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's definitely affected the weather in a lot of things over here, but yeah, nice and bright, sunny.
Did you get affected by the hurricane directly?
Well, it was projected that we were directly. All we got was a little bit of rain. It didn't hit us too bad. So that's,
that's good.
That's good. That's good.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's good. But we did get a little bit of a gas scare like a week ago or last week. So for about a week and a half, you really couldn't get gas anywhere. So, but that's all kind of stopped and back to normal, so to say.
I posted to my Facebook feed. My wife and I were in St. John, in the U.S. Virgin Islands, as part of a vacation probably 15 years ago. And I just remember how beautiful those islands were. And now that I'm hearing about how badly they've gotten just totally destroyed, it is
I know. Yeah. Tim Duncan just went down there to help, raise awareness and help rebuild some of those islands and stuff. So it's just crazy. It's unbelievable.
It is nuts because those places were so beautiful. I mean, they were just ridiculously gorgeous. And I had a weird little circumstance. I took a little walk away from the group I was with and went down to one of the beaches, just walked down a little lane, and I came across a little kid who was practicing cricket. I had my camera with me, so I was just taking some shots. And when I got back, I didn't know it at the time, but when I got back, I found out that one of those shots was one of those absolutely astonishing accidental. He was using a cricket bat to hit a cricket ball, and I caught the shot at the moment the bat and the ball collided. So the ball is literally compressed, about to be launched off. Wow. With the Caribbean Sea behind him. It's not a like, oh my God photo, but just that moment was really cool. So I found it back and I went, man, it's just. Now I wonder if he's safe. You just think about, all these little people who are just trying to get their lives together, and then this thing comes through and just smashes where you live.
Yeah, it's just it's insane the amount of hurricanes that have just come through this past couple months. But resilient and strong, bounce back.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So have you guys heard anything on Final Cut Pro recently? Anything specific? I mean, the summertime is so typically a slow time for Final Cut. Every year it's like slow news. You got to really search and dig for news. Have you guys heard anything specific about Final Cut that caught your attention over the last month or so?
No, the only thing that was surprising to me, and it's not surprising, I thought there was a binary either or switch about IBC. I thought after the period of time we've waited, if there was something percolating behind the scenes, I thought there was two decent kind of balanced chances. One is we would hear about it at IBC because that's the European gathering. The other possibility is that they wouldn't do it there, but they do it at the Creative Summit where they have much more control.
Right.
And that's my leaning now to think if, and I have no knowledge of anything but if they've actually been working on new code in 10 to do more things or whatever, that it would seem to me that Apple's history of these big Tim Cook presentations and these kind of regular now talking to the Apple community from Cupertino, that might be something that would happen coming up. Don't know, just guessing, but that's my guess.
Sure.
I'm feeling that too, and I'm hoping that they also would show the Imac Pro as well. At the Creative Summit.
Yeah, that's if they duplicate what happened last year. Apple did a presentation on Thursday, and they didn't really have a whole lot to present other than the new MacBook Pro. And they talked about a few other things. And I remember I was coming from the airport, from the San Francisco airport, going to Cupertino, and on the way there in the shuttle, and she goes, "Oh, and that's the new version of Final Cut Pro." That was the announcement to the world.
Yeah.
That was really, wow.
Throwaway line. And by the way.
Oh, by the way,
when we were there,
she goes, "That's the new version of Final Cut Pro," and then the announcements came after that. But that was interesting when she did that.
And as you well know, Richard, when we got there, and Tony, I don't remember, were you at the Creative Summit last year?
I was not, no.
Okay. So the weird thing was, we didn't know any of this was happening. We just thought we were going to the Creative Summit. I'd been there the year before, and I just thought I was going to, again, it was going to be mostly a get to know people and talk with other people who use the software like I do. When we got there, it turned out that not only was this announcement fresh on the wires, but they had set up a hands-on demo situation, essentially in private rooms and a whole table full of Macs, of laptops, with the new version of 10 on it, and we were actually able to go touch and have experience with the touch bar, which was brand new there, and other things. So they used it as truly a hardware and software for the creative video community launch. That's what the Creative Summit was in part last year. Now, that is not predictive. That does not mean that's going to happen this year. But it's interesting that they used it like that before.
Yeah, it seems that they've set the stage for that to happen, that to go down.
Right.
And I remember following the Creative Summit and watching that, the presentation, but seeing pictures of, I forget who it was posting. I think Thomas Gore Carter posted like the touch bar that he was, interacting with. So it was kind of neat to be able to kind of follow everyone and kind of get updates that way as well.
Absolutely. So I agree with you, Tony. I think there's a very good possibility that we will see hands-on with the iMac. They announced it for December, so the end of October is, 1 month away from December. It certainly should be available at some point. But I really like the iMac. I like everything about it, and that the iMac Pro is just a beautiful space gray, and it has a bunch of, it has built-in 10 gig E.
That's what I'm really excited about that.
Yeah. Now, why are you excited personally?
Personally, because I am looking to go with the SAN, and the iMac just makes so much sense.
Right.
and it's got a really beefy graphics card. And if I can keep those Thunderbolt ports for other things, that would be great. And
Yes.
I could just go directly hardware in 10 gig. It's a less, one less little component to have. So I was really, to me, that really told me that they were serious. That connection told me that they were serious.
Right.
About making it the iMac Pro.
Well, that's one of the things for sure. Plus I've been saying for years, why don't they have an 8-core iMac? And it's because of the heat or whatever. So they finally jumped to 8-core. Is it 8, 12, and 16 or 18, something like that? The options?
I think so. I can't remember exactly.
That's incredible. In an iMac? But
Yeah.
the form factor?
And I'm excited about the graphics card. I think they're putting the Vega.
Yes.
AMD Vega. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to see how that's going to perform. With
It's not even out yet.
With
It just came out. Maybe it just came out.
I think they just started, shipping them out.
So I don't know what portion Final Cut uses the graphics versus the CPU. I'm not sure. I know, like Motion and After Effects, they all use the graphics card quite heavily, but I'm not sure how much Final Cut versus the CPU uses the graphics card. Do you know?
No, that's one thing I don't know. I haven't really looked into that. It's just, X just utilizes the hardware. Even my 2015 laptop just cuts great UHD stuff, send it out.
Right.
It's pretty amazing.
Well, in the big change that they did, back at OS 10, OS X, they really moved all, that whole re-architecture. So you got core video, core audio, core graphics, all those core calls. And it seems to me that whenever you're throwing gigantic amounts of bits around or calculating with them, that the GPU has to then kind of become ascendant, and the CPU doesn't do as much. Again, I'm not a hardware engineering type at all, so this is just from what I read from other people. So it seems to me that everything is going to be based off of those tiers of core routines that the whole operating system depends on. So for those of us who work in media, that's our bread and butter. That's what we're constantly doing. We're not doing huge amounts of text. We're doing huge amounts of pixel wrangling. So I can see why the GPU becomes more and more ascendant, and why everybody's talking about the future of maybe eGPUs being something that if you can get a fast enough bus and enough bandwidth in that bus, that being able to offload high-level, incredibly super fast graphics processing from your machine off into an external box would be a really powerful way to proceed in the future.
Yeah, I'm really stoked about eGPU, and I'm looking to get one or maybe two, depending on.
I'm sorry, Tony, I've lost you entirely.
I can hear you, Tony.
No, it's just I can't hear you. Richard, can you hear him? Can you just give me a thumbs up if you can hear him?
Yes, I can hear him.
I broke the internet.
You did break the internet.
It is official.
Yeah, I can hear.
My comment was so dumb that I broke in the entire processing chain.
Plus, you can see his audio on his little icon on the
I can't
screen.
hear a word you're saying.
Yeah. I'm really pumped about eGPU, especially to give life to even like my laptop, or even some of the older. I have a trash can, so that could really help just give a little extra life to that.
Absolutely.
I don't really want to sell it to anybody. I don't know if anybody's going to buy it, to be honest. So if I can just pump a little bit more life in there and
maybe it's
better performance to resolve.
Guys, I'm gonna log off and log back on. Richard, is that okay?
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
So
one thumbs up. So I'm gonna do it and see if I can make that work.
While Bill's doing that, we have a comment in the YouTube channel. Robert Croy says, and I see this a lot. He says he'd like to see a stripped down version of Final Cut Pro for the iPad. Now, of course, we have iMovie for the iPad, but people want something a little more than iMovie and a little less, GPU and processor intensive than Final Cut Pro for the iPad. When I first saw Final Cut Pro 10, it seems like it's a touch interface almost. A lot of it did.
Yeah. And I guess they would want to cut on the iPad just to cut simple videos.
Sure.
iMovie does a great job on mobile.
No, I agree. I agree. I think that they want something a little more than what iMovie does. Even for a straight cuts kind of a thing, or even just the Final Cut Pro moniker.
There was an app that just came out, I would say the past like 6 months. And it's definitely that app that's in between Final Cut 10 and iMovie. It begins with the L. I can't remember the name of it. It looks very, very promising.
Yeah, I bought that.
I bought
Yeah, I bought it. I have it on my iPad. I can't look it up right now though because I got the iPad doing something else with the streaming setup. So if they would, if they would port a version of Final Cut, even if it was just like iMovie, I mean, I keep hearing similarities to the code that Final Cut uses versus the code that iMovie uses. Can you hear us now, Bill?
I'm back on. Yeah, I can hear you. So that fixed it. Tony's frozen. Now Tony's back. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, this is just network craziness.
We were just talking. We had a comment on the YouTube live chat that they'd like to see a stripped down version of Final Cut on the iPad. Now, the typical answer is, well, that's iMovie, but I think people want something more than iMovie on the iPad. I mean, we were just talking. It seems like Final Cut Pro looks like it should be touched a lot of times.
Could be. Here's my 2 cents about that. I think again, I'm not a hardware engineer, so I'm a little over my depth talking about this, but from talking to people who know more than I do, it seems to me that an iPad, iPhone level processor and a Core i7 or i5 or i9 processor are 2 different engines. So just like taking a V8 and putting it on a go-kart doesn't work real well, taking a lawnmower engine and putting it in a car doesn't work very well, you have to understand that what you can do through a touch interface on iOS is probably always going to be a subset of what you can do on a real scalable laptop or desktop architecture. Now, that said, I was freaked, and I think I posted in one of the groups that we hang out on a piece, by how fast the processor in the new iPhones.
Well, yeah, I was just going to say the iPhone 8, their new internal. This is them doing their own chips now, right?
Yeah, the A11, A10, I can't remember. Yeah,
they're right on par or better than their laptops.
Yeah, that freaked me out too. But it's designed to talk to a different architecture than is the processor in a laptop. So, yeah, I think that's a huge leap in what the mobile processors can do. But I don't think that means, unless I'm wrong, I don't think that means you can port the code from Final Cut 10 directly onto an iPhone and have it run on that A11 in a pure fashion. I just don't think that's possible. And somebody smarter than I will have to.
No, I don't think that's what would happen. I think they'd, I thought that the iOS is based on Mac OS, isn't it? I'm pretty sure it is.
Based is a funny word. I mean, is it? That's like saying one portrait is based on the Mona Lisa. It's not the same as the Mona Lisa. It's just based on it. So the question is, where are the similarities and where are the differences? It seems to me that you were saying, Richard, I think the little piece that I heard was talking about how iMovie and Final Cut Pro 10 share some DNA. And I've always thought, yeah, that has to be that way. I mean, as I understand it, when Randy Ubelos originally thought out some of this structural rethinking of an NLE, he tested those ideas in the new version of iMovie first and developed there. And then it was after the extension of those into the new realm of thinking that became Final Cut Pro 10. So why would you write all fresh code? If you've got some things working well, if you've got hooks into the database and you're calling those core engines in the OS and you're successfully and rapidly being able to make that work, why would you just rewrite all that? Doesn't make any sense at all. You grab things that work and move them over to the new environment where you can build the bigger and stronger house. So it always just made sense to me. It just doesn't seem sensible to do anything else. Why wouldn't you grab some code if it's good code and cross over?
And the OS, Mac OS and iOS, they're doing this. They're merging as well. A lot of features that are in OS are coming to iOS and vice versa. So who knows what's going to happen with that.
Yeah, and maybe you're right. Maybe at the apex of the pyramid, maybe at some point, Apple's chip creation capabilities, which they obviously have, if they're manufacturing these A10s and they're in the processor construction business. And Intel's over here, and Intel is the behemoth who is, I think they've kind of ascended a little to kind of locking in that. I mean, I know AMD is still out there, and I understand they do great work, but Intel seems to be the 1,000-pound gorilla. How long will it take Apple, and does Apple want to try to compete with parity in chip design? Maybe it turns out these A10s or the A series or whatever their wizards are developing in the back room will get so fast that it blows those other processors out of the water, and they can run laptops and desktops on it. And if they can ever do that, then why wouldn't the same stuff run on both platforms?
Well, I think that they are definitely thinking about that because they're pushing strong with AR, which is very intensive.
I'm sorry,
graphics-wise,
you dropped out audio-wise again for me.
So as far as that's a lot of heavy lifting to be able to do that real-time live processing. So I think custom chips are the way to go.
Yeah, I think we're going to see more of that from Apple. I mean, it's just makes sense. I mean, if they can do it better and more efficient, right, and get custom.
It's going to be interesting to go back to listen to what I'm not hearing right now. I'm going to try another reboot. I apologize.
That's okay.
I think what's happening is our summer has finally broke. It's below 120, and all the infrastructure here is going, oh, thank you. I'm going to take a break now.
Keep the air conditioning on. Go ahead.
I'm going to dive out. I'll be back shortly.
Go ahead. We might let him back in, Tony. What do you think?
Maybe. Well, let's see. He is wearing a blue shirt, and we're all wearing blue shirts, so that might.
Yeah. So okay. Sam Woodall in YouTube chat said, Sam, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He said he's seen the iPhone 8, 10 has the same power as a MacBook Pro. I think we could see laptop potential in the next iPad Pro, but I think we could see 10 on that iPad Pro too. So it's an interesting concept. I don't expect it to be full featured on an iPad, but I do expect to see a version, just a cuts only version. I mean, I don't care if it is iPad. I don't care if it is iMovie, just with the Final Cut Pro Lite name or whatever they want to call it. Too many people have been asking for that. And I'm not sure how easy it is to translate iMovie projects to Final Cut Pro 10 now. I know there was, you could do something, but I'm not sure how it goes back and forth with cuts only stuff. So
I think it's one way.
Just one way?
Yeah, I think it's just one way. But it's if you want to go back and forth, you're also talking about moving footage around. I don't know how that's
guys. Did you see the Final Cut library opener launch this week from Arctic Whiteness and Mike Matzdorf?
Yes, I heard about it. I'm really excited about that.
So Mike is on the next episode of Final Cut Pro Radio, and I interviewed him yesterday, and it's very interesting what that thing's doing. It's not just a simple copy in the Finder kind of a thing. It's something else. So we're tune into that. It'll be out next week, that episode. And probably some of what we're talking about tonight will be on that episode as well, just audio only. But it's very, very interesting what that little app is doing. Between that and what Final Cut Pro does, the combination of the two.
So what does it do? It allows you to open up another's library, pull stuff from it, and then it closes it down?
And gets rid of all the cache files. Okay. So there's no duplication of anything. Now, you have to have external media. I mean, I don't know how it would work with internal.
Right.
You have to have external media, which most big projects have. I mean, I can't imagine doing, small projects.
Collaborative workflow will have that already. It's pretty much a requirement.
Yeah, I work external all the time, but never internal really. I'm really curious to see how it's going to work and how people are going to utilize it. It's always interesting to see somebody release a product and then start to see all the little different creative teams and this is how we utilize it. This is how we make this happen. So.
Or as we talked about, if Apple releases something in the next version of Final Cut that does something similar, then that's the lifespan of that application. That's it.
That would stink, but that would be great.
Like when Philip Hodgett's had Event Manager out.
Yeah.
And then they combined the projects and events into a library, and then that was the end of life of that. So we had a few years.
Yeah, little run.
So we do, do we think the next version of Final Cut, I mean, hopefully it comes out around the Creative Summit, but whenever it comes out, do we think it's going to be 10.4?
I think so.
Because it's been a long time. Everything has
Mhm.
been bug fixes, 4 bug fixes, and that's unusual. No feature update, just 4 bug fixes. So it seems like they're saving those up for the next version.
Yeah.
From reading the net about, from purely people who I don't think have any clue, but like to speculate anyway, and I am often in that category. It seems to me that the big speculation is wying into 2 camps. One speculative group says, well, because Tim Dashwood and other people came up, they're going to do a big push into virtual reality and 3R and stuff like that. That's where 10 is going. And there's another group of people who think that Apple is going to build on what they've already built on for collaborative stuff. That the roles stuff and maybe some kind of audio plumbing stuff is where they're going to focus next. That seems to me to be the 2 contending speculative things. I'm going to stay right where I always have been, and Richard's heard me say this a dozen times. I just want to be surprised. Whatever I'm thinking they're going to do now, I don't want them to do that, because I'm too dumb to imagine something really fabulous that would just light me up. And I always love it when they can. Now, realistically, they can't forever come up with gigantic industry transforming things. Like, to me, the whole browser database thing was transformative. Everything about how I worked before that changed when I got that. And I've spent 6 years just trying to get my head around the best ways I can possibly leverage just that to make my work easier. So I like the transformative stuff. I think roles was in that category. I've never imagined doing audio this way up until that hit. And now I see, there's all sorts of reasons they took their time to rethink audio. There's not a good adjective here. Or it's not patching. It's not track substitution. It's a lot and not enough of all those things, but it was new thinking.
Yeah.
So that's what I love.
Definitely Tim Dashwood is a great addition, and there's no secret that Apple's looking to go into AR, and I'm assuming that Final Cut will have a role in that somehow, somewhere along the way. But to me, bringing on Westplate was reassuring, and that's where I'm really excited about to see, what he's going to bring to the table. And at whatever capacity, but just his past, his history, and what he's done, and him and his father, what they've developed, and just those bridging and connecting things. So I'm really curious and excited to see, okay, where's this going to go? And when X first came out, 10 first came out, I don't think he was a fan of Final Cut 10. And I remember him being on Twitter late at night.
Yeah,
when he first started experimenting with it, he would post something on Twitter, and some, we'd all jump on there and say, oh, well, you need to do this. And
Sure.
That. So it's just because he's a critic, I think that's really good that he's there. He's really asking whys and how can we make things better? How can we improve things? So I'm really excited that he's on board and to see what pushes and things.
Well, Wes has always been the ultimate, it needs to get done guy.
Yeah.
His forte was practical tools that solve problems for real life end users.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know, it gets into the mothership at Apple, and maybe they're going to have him thinking bigger, and maybe, that's part of what Apple does to people. It takes people with real talent and says, tell us if you need to keep going in this direction, or tell us if you can imagine more. And if you can imagine more, make the case. You're surrounded by people who are being pushed in that direction. Imagine more. What would the best thing be? We are willing to stop where we're going. This seems to be the Apple process, right? We're willing to stop where we're going now, even if we've invested in it, if you can convince us that there is an actual better way to do this. Mm-hmm. So make your case. And it seems to me that those are the people they tend to gravitate toward and bring in.
So what, I'm not I haven't got that involved with VR or AR, and I know other people that are not, they don't really care about it. So as long as it's not the only big thing in Final Cut Pro 10, the new update, that'll be fine if it's just an additional feature with other things. It's just, for example, when they did 3D text, who buys Final Cut Pro 10 for 3D text?
No one buys it for it, but can your videos look contemporary if you don't have the capacity to do what all the feeds and all the stuff is coming, where the ad agencies, the marketing people, the movie people are always saying, this is an aesthetic that screams contemporary. If you're stuck with flat type from 1999, you do not look contemporary. Your stuff does not one another. It doesn't say it can't be badly used. Doesn't say it can't be used as a toy, but I'm just saying it's capacity that you're putting out there for creative people to use in the way they do.
No, yeah. as a sidecar feature, absolutely, but not as a main feature. My point is not that it's bad. My point is people don't buy Final Cut Pro 10 for the 3D text, and I don't think that if they had VR and AR, that would be a primary reason people would buy Final Cut Pro. As a sidecar item, yes, as something else.
But Richard, what I'm saying is that I don't disagree with what you're saying. People don't buy it for that feature, but the fact that there is no way to make your video, whether you are a business or an educational institution, if you can't make your work look modern, or even if you're just a YouTube producer, and I shouldn't say just a, because we know how many, there are people out there who have more than the networks subscribing to things. If you can't make your stuff look contemporary, you are falling behind. Because somebody else will, and then the clients go to those people who can make it look cooler and more contemporary. It's really a kind of a, it's not that brings people by itself, but the lack of it reduces credibility and demand.
Yeah, well, I think I'll agree with that. I'll agree with that. I'm just uploading a video right now, kind of speaking to that, and when it was announced, I forget what version, that the 3D text came available. I kind of looked at that and I was like, I didn't really like it, and I didn't think that was a good enough feature for me to use. But I have to tell you, it's changed my mind. I use it a lot because a lot of my work is between corporate stuff. I just did some show opens for an event here in Texas, and guess what I used? I didn't use it a lot, but I used the 3D text, and I used just enough of it to give it that little extra dimension. But the fact that budgets are shrinking, schedules are shrinking, more content is being asked to be made, you have to be able to do these things inside the NLE. And that's what this video I'm uploading is about, is, you don't really have the same amount of time to go outside of the program into another graphics package and then bring it back in, and then, oops, the edit changed. Rough and polish and design all at the same time, on the fly, and it looks just as good, and you can tweak and have the same type of level of quality.
Amen to that. Amen to that. It seems to me much like my education about type. When I started out decades ago, I didn't know anything about type, and because I was in the Mac world, it started getting more and more on my radar. And now I find myself surrounded in these circumstances where I'm dealing with art directors and I'm dealing with other professionals. And if you can't speak type, you are not taken seriously. I mean, you're just not. If somebody says, no, that's the wrong font, and you don't understand, that's not the right variant of Garamond to do our logo type, if you can't parse that sentence, understand what they're speaking with, and speak to them, then you are not taken as seriously. And so my concern is that the people who are dismissing these supposed not core technologies, like 3D, VR, AR, will find themselves in that same mental headspace. You will be working with somebody who wants you to program something for their iPhone so that as they carry it through the grocery store, good design pops up and gives them specials about the products that the near field communication is talking to your phone about. If you can't even play in that ball game, you're dead. They will just not call you.
You have to constantly be looking at, like, where's it going? Right. And motion graphics will never go away. It's always going to be here. It's just going to be delivered in a different format. but having that aesthetic and having that ability to create good-looking design inside the NLE is that extension of being able to do it right inside for your AR, video or for your VR video, and so forth. So yeah, I think that's one of the things that is the underdog that people don't really think about is it's like a little smoke. I mean, you can really finish it. I mean, I'm speaking of the audio desk smoke system. It's kind of a finishing to it.
Right.
You can.
No, I agree with that. I agree that 3D text is a nice feature when you need it. You don't need it for Twitter. You don't need it for YouTube. You need it more for films and more professional level stuff, I think, because those are both flatter typically. When you do a tutorial on YouTube, I don't use 3D text generally. But as far as VR goes, once again, what percentage of the final users of Final Cut Pro will be using VR? Interestingly, Ripple Training, who we all know and all like, is going strictly VR. Steve Martin sold his gear, and he announced he's going with
Really?
Yeah. He sold his gear recently, his camera, and he said he's going, as far as filming and stuff, he's going to just start going, I think, all towards VR or 360 VR, he calls it. He just bought a camera that does 4K 360 VR. Now that I'd be interested in.
Well, if you go back and look at the Tim Cook latest presentation where he did the iPhone 8s, right? That little tabletop demo, which was an improvement over the one they did in Tim Cook's prior speech to the nation. That idea of gaming appearing on a flat surface through very sophisticated 3D, way beyond wireframe world building is clearly something that the technology, even on phones, can do now. And so the question is, if the phones can do that kind of stuff, where are all the people coming from that can make that kind of stuff? And the answer has to be the early adopters who are exploring it now. In 5 years, the people who are exploring that stuff now, when it's off people's radar, are going to be the people in the center of that if they are right, and the demand for that on these mobile devices explodes. We're already seeing this thing where, all the marketers want to do viral social media. And the only people a few years ago who could do that were 14-year-olds because nobody else had 3 years of social media experience in the professional class. So I just think that's going to keep happening in smaller ways.
So as long as they do other things, I don't mind, VR. I'm actually more curious about it now that there's a 4K camera that seems to be affordable that does 360 VR. I'm certainly going to try it out. Absolutely.
Is this a 4K camera that does it does all the stitching as well, or does he stitch it himself?
Steve Martin said it was 4K 360 VR. I don't know what exactly that means. I just didn't like the quality of the prior generation of cameras. They were more like VHS quality because of the stitching thing you're talking about.
Yes, because you really need like an 8K stitch to really deliver like a decent 2K or 4K resolution once you're inside.
Yeah,
because of the stitching. So,
but it's a whole different way of looking at filming, isn't it? VR versus just a flat screen.
But
so it's a whole different way.
The filming thing is the right paradigm. I swear to God, I think that what it is, if you're standing in the aisle at the grocery store and you want to look around the shelves, what are you looking at? 360 VR. And if you want to map prices and sales and offers and coupons into that, you must be able to process real-time information about a 360-degree spatial sphere, right?
But that's AR.
Right,
okay.
And so
that's true.
I don't think you can escape having to think about this stuff.
Oh no,
or
you don't have to escape it.
If you still think movie on a screen in a Cineplex, I just think you're falling behind. And that's a terrible thing to have to say because they're wonderful and I adore them and I want them to last and be great forever.
They will.
But
I don't.
that's the bifurcation.
I don't mind. I don't mind the 360 VR on a screen where I can move it around. I'm not wearing those goofy glasses.
Yeah, and
But Apple doesn't want you to either, right? Apple just
I
wants you
hope
to
not.
hold your phone.
well, that's the difference between VR and AR, and that's why I think YouTube did their whole new 180-degree VR, because most of the time, for the first 30 seconds to a minute, you're looking around in your experience, and then after that, you're pretty much just looking forward and turning your head. You're not really moving back and forth too much. So it's going to be interesting to see, how it fragments and what picks up, what rises to the top or not. But AR definitely, it's here. It's ready to go.
Oh yeah. Well, Tim Cook's even said that Apple is very interested in AR. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wouldn't want Final Cut Pro to be an AR video editor. I want it to be a non-linear video editor. Don't mind if it's included.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. The problem is if it can't do AR or can't do VR. It's not that it needs, every user needs to do that, but if the product doesn't have that capability, then the product goes into a secondary tier.
Well, what is the Tim Dashwood plugins? They seem to work fine.
Well, yeah, but you got to remember that that was back in the research phase. I mean, Tim was, I think, really, really smart and really understood that there was something possible by the processing grunt power of these things that could work in this new world. Because this is a lot of pixels. It's stupidly tracking a lot of pixels. And it's integrating, motion sensor and maybe GPS and God knows what all into that. So you have to have incredible throughput.
And this is going to be also a testament to make sure that Apple's announced new hardware, but specifically to be able to handle this. So they've really got to step up to make sure that they can deliver new architecture that
absolutely.
Absolutely
process and deliver this.
So speaking of that, do you think that the Imac Pro, which has already been announced, is going to have some things, the Final Cut Pro specific, that other machines can't do because of its power?
I do. I think this is the classic Apple tier structure, right?
Okay.
For the general group in the world, you make the most powerful laptops you can so that general people can get in and start doing pragmatic work. Then you have the business users who have multiple users and they want to create a workshop, for lack of a better word, an editing house. And for them, you want to bring in a machine that fits nicely in that center tier. It's got to be crazy powerful because everybody demands more and more of that. It's also got to be simple to maintain and take care of. I mean, you don't want to spend a lot of stuff on technicians to come in and do stuff. And so for all of those, there's 60 or 70,000 people in the federal government's, professional video editor category. So that's a lot of seats in a lot of office buildings across America, and you want to have a product for them. And then you get the purported talked about new Mac Pro reinvention, rethinking thing. And that's, to me, for edge cases, but there are quite a lot of them, that really need to maximize everything. And, VFX is a set like that. I'm sure scientific calculation is a set like that. There's a whole, edgy upper tier that just want, you give them a rocket and they want a bigger rocket. That's all they want. And so you have to do something for them too. So it seemed to me that tiered approach has always worked for Apple, and it probably will continue to.
So the iPhone 8 does H.264.
Or 265.
Yeah, H.26. I'm sorry, 265. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but Final Cut Pro doesn't handle H.265 yet.
Not yet.
So what are we doing with the videos from the iPhone 8? How are you doing anything with them?
Just saw something on Twitter. Somebody was mentioning that we could shot some stuff on the iPhone and they couldn't get into Final Cut 10.
Yeah.
Would any of us not be
transcoded?
Would any of us, our jobs not drop if Apple, after they've now announced H.265 on the phones, thought that 10 and iMovie and everything else in their lineup wouldn't eventually get written to handle as best the hardware on those legacy phones and pads and everything else can.
Yes.
You know, High Sierra migration is going to break some stuff, and this stuff is going to break some stuff, and an H.265 end-to-end workflow is going to break some of the stuff we existingly have now. But I can't think of anybody who doesn't project forward and say that's all going to get fixed.
Yes, I'm sure it is.
You
Hopefully,
just
this next,
can't not.
it's going to have to be in this next update since the iPhone 8 is out already.
Well, and High Sierra is you know, it's going to be H.265 and High Sierra.
Oh, there you go.
So it's it's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know, you're it's not dragging, but you're incentivizing people to change everything. And I got to tell you, that's kind of how I am. I still listen to these people on the web who say, no, I froze it 2 years ago because everything worked. And I am so burned from 20 years of, as soon as I upgraded my system, everything broke. So they just stay.
You know, but it's different now, though, because I remember back in the days of Final Cut 1, 2, and 3, you know, even the days of Media Composer, building systems, and it was a process. You had a stack of CDs, you had a stack of boxes, and it took an afternoon or a day to make sure that you properly installed, you know, the OS, each piece of software. Then I got my RAID system set up and all these different pieces, and then you had to do extensive testing. And that architecture for the software and the hardware is gone. I mean, now it's in an app store. You can download it and, you know, upgrade and change a whole new Final Cut 2 to Final Cut 3 and be up and running in minutes. And I'm not saying that you should do that all the time. Obviously, even if you have a project going on, you want to, you know, finish that project. But the architecture adapts and reacts much quicker and different than it used to.
It does, very much so. And I would say my resistance to going ahead and clicking download on a new OS delivery from Apple across my network is probably somewhere around 10% now. I don't have much resistance because the last 10 or 15 or 20 times I've done that, there have been occasional small problems that were repaired pretty quickly, but there's never been a massive disaster. So my confidence in the click refresh to go to High Sierra is pretty high. Now, this is a pretty big update, so I could get fooled and I'll be a little more cautious than before.
This is a big update.
Caution is good.
This is a big update, absolutely.
The file system structure is different. It's gonna.
So let's wall that off. Going back, the last 5 updates for Apple OSs. Give me your guys' impression of what's your confidence level when you click that going from 10.3 to 10.2 to 10.25 or something like that.
Let's say hi to Sam. Just joined us. Sam Woodall from the UK.
Hey,
I
Sam, how's it going?
just had an echo of Bill because I'm watching the live stream and I joined and there was that 2
No,
Bills.
you have to.
Uh-oh.
You have
Wait a
to watch
second.
just a Google
That's
Hangout.
too many.
Yeah, too many.
Hello,
There we go. How is everyone?
Pretty darn good. It's been a while.
Good. I thought I'd join you. I've got about 10 minutes free before.
We're just talking about confidence in hitting the Apple refresh button to update your OS. We know that High Sierra is going to be a bit bigger and a bit sketchier. But before that, my question for the rest of the guys, and nobody has answered yet, was how confident on a scale of 1 to 100? I said 90%. I'm 90% confident when I click update my OS that things are going to be fine now. That's after doing it.
For me, it was a week early, so that's how confident I am. Because I was on the public beta. But yeah, no, I'm pretty with that. With iOS, I'm a little bit more confident because there's usually backups of everything that I've got. It's all on iCloud and everything. Like with my machine stuff, I'm a bit more hesitant because I've got stuff in the process and I don't want things to break. Whereas my phone, I'm okay with that. I just feel like it's not as detrimental to what I'm doing. It isn't, it doesn't affect me getting paid. Let's just say that.
Right.
Right.
So, where are you in the confidence scale?
Well, usually when I click something, I'm confident about it, but it's only because I'm always one OS behind. So I usually stay one OS behind. Just because, there's other software packages that I use. So I want to make sure that they all are going to be able to play well. And like you said, it's my livelihood. So it's something that I have to make sure runs. But still, it's like I'm not tearing down a whole system like I used to just to put a new OS on there.
I remember those days. Absolutely.
So that's still a much better place to be. And so right now I'm on El Cap, and I'm going to jump to Sierra once the High Sierra comes out. I usually stay one
So
OS.
that's a traditional safety valve that a lot of people in the professional world use. Stay an OS behind, because I know it works and I'll have to mess with it. Richard, how do you feel about it?
I would say probably about 80-85%, but I have one thing I want to say: carbon copy cloner. I just clone.
Yeah.
I clone my drives. I clone my iMac. I clone my MacBook Pro. Then I'm not worried about it.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll load it. If it doesn't work, I'll just load the other one back in.
But I literally can't remember the last time I had to go save myself by going back to an OS.
I agree for the most part.
I can't even remember it.
Maybe a plug-in or something that I really needed. That's the only thing.
Yeah, but then you'll just boot from your clone, get the plug-in or something like that, and work in that. Because I do the same thing. I think most people do. We do these mirror clones so that we can always. Oh my God! I've got to use 7. Oh,
Yeah.
before the sweat's pouring off of my. Let me go get the drive that's over there sequestered in a Faraday cage.
Well, you say the drives everything. I've just seen a comment by Gabriel that says that the new Apple file system with High Sierra. So I don't know, because I know it's not going to work with Fusion drives. The new Apple file system. I don't know. I think it's initially.
Isn't that peculiar? That doesn't work.
Yeah, I know. I find that kind of odd. I think it must be the marrying of 2 drives in one. So I'm guessing if you've got SSDs, if you've got a full SSD or a full hard disk drive, I think you're okay. But just the Fusion drive thing, I think, is a bit of an issue.
So Sam, have you got your GH5 yet?
No, unfortunately, I'm not. I'm currently in a position where it's just financial stuff, really.
Okay.
Just trying to kind of, tax things coming up. I'm like, right, what do I do? So
right.
it's finding it the best time to invest in equipment. So I'm like, right, do I do it now? Do I do it? So
sure.
It's that kind
now,
of
I was wondering how you were doing H.265 if you did have.
I won't be doing that yet. Well, I will actually. Saying that, I'll be getting the new iPhone 8 Plus hopefully by the end of the month.
Right. That's what we're talking about.
I will be switching to that. I was going to go for the 10, but then I thought, well, I've been on the 6 Plus for the last, how long has it been? 4 years since that came out?
3 or 4, yeah.
3 or 4 years. So I've been on that. So going from the 6 to the 8 Plus, I think, is a big improvement anyway, rather than going to the 10, because I'm going to miss the home button if I don't. So that's the deal. But I'll be using H.265 on that. So, but I have seen that same tweet. I think it was I stumbled across his YouTube channel today looking for kind of reviews and thoughts about the new iPhone. And it's a guy called Mr. Mobile on YouTube. And I saw his profile picture. I thought, wait, I recognize that guy. And I saw his tweet about Final Cut and H.265 video on Twitter. So it was kind of funny. But I think he managed to convert the footage, and he got it all working in the end. So for the case of not being able to use it in Final Cut, I think you can switch the toggle, but I don't know if you can't use 4K 60p in H.265. So you have to use 4K 60p in that codec, because I think it uses the compression to stop the phone from overheating. I think that's kind of how they've managed to do it. Wow. Personally, I think that's what they've done. Don't quote me on that.
4K raster in 60 fields progressive. That is so freaking many.
It is
pixels to push around. This is magic.
It is. It is magic. Absolutely.
I mean, mathematically, that tracking that many discrete states with color depth. That's insane.
So, Tony, are you going to the Creative Summit by any chance?
I'm not. I'm not sure if I can make it schedule-wise. I think I can, but it's just kind of up in the air right now. So I haven't bought anything, any tickets or anything.
Well, you at least ought to come to the exhibitors thing on Friday night. It's only $40.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can come to that. So they have separate tickets for that.
I'll get a plane ticket for that. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Cupertino.
I'll get one too.
You can stay with Brad Olson. I'll just tell him you're going to come and stay with him.
Just tell him that you got a new PA that will stay with him and see what he says.
Exactly.
No.
Well, one of the interesting things about the Creative Summit this year, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't the last couple years, At the bottom of the web page, it says in cooperation with Apple.
Ooh.
Yes, it's on the web page. So they may have been working with them in the past years behind the scenes. This
Right.
time it's public. It's in cooperation with Apple.
I think after last year's Creative Summit.
That tag wouldn't show up if every lawyer in Apple hadn't agreed to that tag.
Right. Right.
Yeah. I think after last year's Creative Summit and how they publicly kind of announced 10 and how they demoed it, I think that was kind of the first run, I think. Test run of non-publicly announcing some software. So now it's all official and you've signed the dotted line. And that's how it's working now. So
exactly.
But I think
if people want to get a discount for Final Cut Pro in Motion, I think Amazon's got a 15% off iTunes gift cards.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's what I've read today. There was another place on eBay that had them that I've bought in the past. When I bought my original version of Final Cut, I got it with gift cards. I mean, I got 20% off or something. I bought it in anticipation, not knowing exactly how things were going to be. But I buy those and I keep them saved up. So when something comes out like that, you get a 15 or 20% off.
Yeah,
that's really good. The other technique is to go to your community college, sign up for classes, and take advantage of that insane discount.
That's much better. Final Cut Pro.
Oh my God!
Motion, compressor and live stage for $200.
It's insane. $200 to own them for the rest of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
It is pretty crazy.
That may be worth a college.
Oh, there's one even better. There's one even better than that. You could just work for Apple. And then that way, you don't have to worry about it.
In-house discount.
Yeah,
yes.
My commute would be a little long, but yeah, I could see that happening.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But
pretty much anybody who has any kind of business use for it all shouldn't have much trouble getting a hold of it.
Oh, no. Besides H.265 and besides VR, AR, and Final Cut, what else do we think we're going to see? Are we going to see any collaboration this time of any sort?
I think we'll see the start of it because I think didn't Alex Gollner find?
Yeah.
I think he found like a third. Was it the third or fourth? He found like a blue playhead. Like a bluish purple playhead inside of the code or the resources for Final Cut, and it was a speculation going around that could be potentially like somebody else's skimmer looking over the same project. So there's that, which I think personally, if they're testing it now, then there's got to be something coming up in the next update, even if it's just really small, like. I've been thinking about the event locking, and I thought there's got to be an easier way than that. A nicer, more, because Apple don't like to do conventional stuff. We know this.
Right.
They'll hold on to something until they find the right way. And I was thinking, what if they call it I was thinking of stupid names. I was thinking, would they call it a smart library? Would they call it a live library? How could they change that dynamic? Change that. What's the word? How it would function in a multi-user environment. So, but I also thought of something earlier. Would it actually work easier if the database for the library was on the kind of database for the NAS, in the sense that a bit like how pre 10.1 worked, where you had libraries and events separate. Wouldn't it work easier because then everyone has access to the same database file? I don't know how it would. I don't know how. I was just thinking, wouldn't it?
I'm still trying to get my brain around the fact because I hadn't read that thing from Alex, and so my brain is going multi-UI. You allow more than one in the same timeline at the same time. Oh my God, that's kind of freaking me out in a astonishingly hopeful way. That would be an Apple-esque kind of thing to do, to find a way to let multiple attached users work the same thing instead of the current multiple attached users all working on their own and then concatenating somehow the data with all sorts of permission hassles afterwards. That would be pretty astonishing.
Well, I think when I've talked to people about how that works with Avid and stuff, basically it's not working on the same, not editing the same timeline. Usually it's grabbing something from a project that a colorist wants to work on, or an audio guy wants to work on, and it's not editing in the same timeline, because that would be weird.
Yeah, it's
it would,
carving
yeah.
off and locking bins that are in their own separate space that somebody different than the original project owner can work in for a while and then get out of.
The thing is, Pages does it now with, you can do it with document sharing. And it's exactly the same way. It's like you invite somebody to work on a document, and they are assigned a color, and then they can then edit stuff, and you see this pink or blue, yellow thing going around the document, changing stuff. So I'm assuming it would be like that, but I think they'd see, similar to how Arctic Whiteness have done it, where it would create like a copy of the library, but you'd still see what they were doing. I don't know, maybe perhaps that's kind of where they were going.
I don't know about doing something live in a timeline. I mean, even when you're doing like a Google Docs or Pages and you have multiple people working on a document, it's really best when you have all those same folks on the phone and everybody's talking and there's a live thought process happening, so everybody's changing and doing something. So if I had a timeline and I had other people just in it, I'm not sure I would,
that makes sense,
because
if editor A says I'm changing this to Times Roman and editor B is saying I'm changing it to Garamond at exactly the same time, and they both send those changes off.
Right.
So
it's something that you would need to work out, whether it's through a chat or through audio, you're communicating, live communication.
Unless it's not an editing playhead, it's you're just seeing the timeline locked. You are seeing that. It's like a review. You can go, okay, right, he's working on this timeline. I can play it back. That's what the playhead is. You can see them watching it back. Or it's like again, like I say, like a review thing where they're in there, they're looking around, and then once they've gone, it'll say, so-and-so has closed the library.
Mm-hmm.
So-and-so, because maybe it's like just a locked state they're seeing it in, but they can go into events, grab assets, and then go out again, perhaps. I'm not too sure.
It sounds like all of our hopes is that it's beyond just do it like Avid does it.
Yeah. Definitely.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But I was talking to that assistant Avid editor, and she was telling me how she's been doing it for 20 years with assistant editing with Avid, including big feature films. And I said, well, you have to go and tell somebody else to close the project before you can get in, not the project, but the bin or whatever. I said, I'm surprised that Avid hasn't built in an intercom system where you guys can just talk to each other.
Mm-hmm. They all have it now.
In. Yeah.
They're all third party though, but you're right. They should make Resolve, the new version of Resolve Studio, has a live chat where you can do that.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's
Very
cool.
interesting.
So as you're collaborating, you can go to the little chat window at the bottom right and say, hey, unlock bin this or whatever, and I'm going to jump into that.
Yeah, Richard probably has 3 of those little things up on his screen right now, one for Facebook, one for Google Hangouts. And so if all those companies can make that work.
Mm. I'd use that.
Really interesting, yeah.
I'd use that chat just to go lunch, ? Just coffee.
No, it's hot dog emoji ?
Yeah, there we
Sam.
go. Tacos. We'll do that. That's how I use it.
One of the other interesting things about the Avid system is you need an ISIS, don't you? For bin locking? Yeah. You need hardware. It's not just software.
And it's also interplay. Well, you don't need interplay. I don't think you need interplay. But it does help out when you have interplay.
Now, what about the new implementation that Premiere came out with? Everybody was talking about. Does it need a jellyfish for that?
I don't know. I don't know.
I'm not too sure. I haven't really caught up with what's been going on at IBC, to be honest, because I've been a bit busy this past week.
Well, they talked about it? I mean, they're in a different category, right? Because the rental model means they don't have to look over their shoulder at the FCC quite the same, or not the FCC, the SEC, quite so carefully, because they're not. It's not a future announcing future features too far in advance potentially messes up your forward-looking stock sequesters. So they can do this legally and rationally. They can say, here's what we're working on downstream. And even if they don't ship it down, if they do ship it earlier, that's great. But if it gets cast a quarter, that's a real problem for public companies. And it's not for Adobe. God bless them. That means that they can look downstream, float these trial balloons, and hope that it works out, and hopefully deliver them.
But we know Adobe. They release features constantly, and half of them break very quickly.
Yeah,
or they delete your stuff. It's one or the other.
The point is, Apple tends to release the thing, and there the features are.
Yeah,
right.
They don't say anything about what's coming, and so they avoid that whole.
I spoke to
thing by saying it's not that we're going to do it; it's that we did it. It's here.
Are we allowed to mention names of Apple team here?
No, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
okay, well, I spoke to a member of the Final Cut team
go.
whilst I was at the FCP Final Cut 10 World in London. I thought,
Okay.
how long ago was that? That was like, I'm pretty sure that was like the start of January. But I was there. I spoke to them, and they said that they don't like. I asked them, like, why don't you announce features beforehand? Well, what's the meaning behind it? And they said they don't like to. If they, for example, if they say we're going to release this feature in October, and then they release it in November, like it just kind of makes it difficult to, like, if they miss the mark and they miss the target, then it just it's not a very good experience for users, and they don't want to kind of.
September. Where is it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Panasonic did that recently, didn't they? Like they said, like the update for the GH5 would have come out in, I think they said like July, but it was August, and it's only just now coming out. So it's like they took a lot longer than they said they would, and there was a lot of backlash from users and people just like, where is it? It's like Panasonic wouldn't say so.
To go back to Premiere real quick, Richard, I'm not sure exactly how it's going to work with project sharing. I've seen some of the videos. It looks interesting. But some of the things that I've been noticing what's really cool is the Creative Cloud is you can actually do that across the cloud where you can actually upload projects. Other editors can grab it and work on it. And then they make a change, and then that gets updated to the cloud and back to you at position or place X. So that's kind of interesting. Ouch. That's a little interesting. To see where that's going to go.
Say hi to Gabriel Spalding. He's dropped in to see us real quick.
Right, Gabriel.
Hi, Gabriel.
How you guys doing?
How you doing? Good. So Tony, with that, so you're saying that the Premiere version of sharing or collaboration is going to be working with the cloud somehow?
Yeah, there's I've seen a couple of editors talking about this where they can create projects, proxies, send it over the cloud. Another editor can grab it, and they can make changes and then sync them together and update them.
It's not locked to just local network stuff.
Which that's interesting.
The syncing together, how if two people are doing editing, and how do you sync?
It's not a live sync. It's always going to have to be you, the user, choose to update yourself with the view.
So they must have some sort of cache and forward modality there, because look at what we've experienced. You guys who are just relatively new don't know, but we crashed on my end, whatever my local ISP is doing, and I'm on a fiber optic line here.
Wow.
I got crashed out of this Hangout 3 times when we were setting it up and getting it going. So it's just weird. Huh?
I was on dial-up.
Yeah, you're on dial-up and it's working fine.
I was on dial-up. I was on dial-up the other day downloading the WatchOS update. I was downloading the WatchOS update, and it said 3 days remaining. I thought, great, they've downgraded me to dial-up. I'm downloading too much.
You had a 56K modem.
Yeah, oh God, it was.
Yeah, but the problem is, so you're fostering this collaborative thing, but I don't think the rest of the infrastructure out there in the world is quite there yet. Now, maybe for big companies who can buy T1 lines and stuff like that, that'll be fabulous. But I'm saying, on a fiber optic thing that really works darn well in a major American first world city here, I'm having crash out of a Hangout problems.
Gabriel, where are you calling in from?
In Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
That's a pretty fancy setup you have behind you there. Is that your studio?
Yeah, it's in my basement. I moved down here in January and put up a bunch of sound panels and got it all set up for myself.
And you have a wooden floor.
Well, no, it's crappy paneling, but it looks nice.
Oh, okay.
That's the best crappy paneling I've seen.
It looks
Yeah.
like a recording studio.
It does. It's honestly, I prepped the entire room for like $1,000. It looks a lot nicer than probably really is, but
First rule of TV doesn't have to be real; just has to look real.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's functional. I didn't need it to be luxurious.
Well, now I know what you look like when you come to the Creative Summit.
Exactly.
He usually wears a beard.
I shaved it recently.
It's weird seeing you without it. It's weird seeing you without it.
Way too much white hair for me.
For your age.
Yeah.
You did have a question on the thing, and I was about to get around to that. You wanted to ask Gabriel about what features are you would most like to see.
Yeah, I know Richard. Scrolling timeline is a big one, but apart from that,
Well, you know, one thing I know Bill likes this too. I like to see live scrubbing in a project in the browser.
yeah, like we used to be able to do.
Yeah, we had a project was it a project library?
Your project library.
What
Yeah.
was it, Bill? That was one of your favorites.
Yeah, it was the project library, and it was near and dear to my heart. I loved it because it solved a lot of problems for me with the kind of work I do. But you have to give up some things to get more better things, and that's kind of how I feel about that.
I think with how quick 10 is, it shouldn't be that much of any 10. We can do it with compound clips. I'm sure projects should be
exactly.
it's that quick. I would like to see that return. I might send a request.
So are you guys satisfied? I'd like to see some better audio stuff. I mean, what we have now is definitely a step up, but I don't think it's finished yet.
I know. I spoke to the same guys, and they said it's not over yet with roles. It's just starting. They said
it feels like the new roles and the lanes are the foundational work for.
Oh yeah, it's only going to go forward. They said so.
Yeah, I'm sure the roles will be kind of sent through buses like an actual roles-based mixer instead of having to create compound clips.
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to do that. Yeah.
I just think it's also an interesting dance. I mean, it seems to me that you get these features that become enabled or improvements in features that become enabled as the hardware continues to progress. I was watching Tom Carter's demo from NAB that I saw live and in person, and when he was doing I am in this high-end commercial, and it's playing back down here, and I'm making editorial decisions over here, and everything just keeps running and it's smooth. And I went back to do that on my laptop, and every time I made a significant editorial decision, it would stop. And I said, well, what's the difference here? Well, he's working on the next generation hardware beyond where I am. So obviously, his system can process multiple inputs and keep rolling in a way that mine just can't. So it seems to me that every iteration of hardware, the software gets more capable just by virtue of the resources.
It's like the next iPhone, you know, it's got it's like wireless charging. You can't do it. It's still in iOS. It's just turned off on the later generation of iPhones. It's exactly the same thing. So.
Yeah, I don't know. The Resolve has done a really good job of increasing its performance. You can do a lot of the same things like you can in Final Cut now, where you can be moving clips, adjusting clips while it's playing live in the edit. Just pretty interesting.
I think if I were to go back to tracks, it would be for Resolve. I think that would be.
Definitely.
I think I've gone so used to the magnetic timeline. Like I tried to do something in Premiere the other day, and I thought, right, how would I had to remove a num from an interview? I tweeted this out, and I thought, right, okay, right, I can't skim. So I instinctively went to skim over the clip, and it wouldn't work. I thought, oh great, yeah, no skimming on the timeline. That's why I posted that post in the group, because I thought it's just,
no, you're right.
Something that's
the live
so. Yeah, it was something that was so
Well, you don't realize how efficient it makes you until you don't have it.
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
People kind of critique that, like, oh, how do I turn it off? I want to turn it off completely. I don't like it. But it's like,
and none of us really knows if you will get that feature that you really want only if you update the software or if you update your hardware. Who knows? I don't know which part is slowing down the implementation. What is it that's causing the timeline not to scroll? Is it a hardware thing? Is it a software thing? Is it a core call to core graphics or animation? What is it that's making that not simply possible?
Well, it's probably it's definitely possible. It's probably the audio waveforms redrawing. I figure they're using
That's a possibility. Yeah, that's a reasonable possibility. There's all sorts of things that saying it really should just do it is not the same as actually implementing it.
Well, there's a button. I've heard this. There's a button on the new iMac Pro that says scrolling timeline. You press it and then you have it.
Oh, see, there you go. It's right next to the 10 gig.
But it's $5,000 though, so that's the That's the downside.
It's a plug-in.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. I just don't know. We all want things, but the question is, what's the actual reason why we don't have some of the things we want?
Well, for example, I would like know. And this shouldn't be dependent on technology, but I would like a lot of people complain about color in Final Cut 10. I actually really like the color board. What I don't like is having to scroll through 3 different tabs every time.
Right.
Why can't we see all 3 panes in the inspector, which is now full height anyway?
Sure.
That would be a huge time saver, in my opinion.
Or just a redesign of the color board so you have one window with all the tabs in it rather than separate tabs, I think.
Sure. Yep.
Now this is interesting. I'll just put this out because this is my experience. I do less and less color grading of my type, which is base grading. I am not a colorist, and I do not do fine grading except for the clients. But I'm doing more and more grading at the browser and less in the timeline. So for me, having them spend a lot of time working on that, I'm grading usually the field footage that comes in because I can grade big, massive groups of it, then go away and let it all process. And then when I bring those into my timelines, they're already base corrected. So I don't have to think about them in the timeline. If I just match up 4 cameras here in the event browser and open as clip and correct them there, go to lunch, go overnight, let them all process, and then I come back, and now I don't have to mess with any of them. I can just cut.
Well, I do a lot of that with
why would I touch? So I'm spending less time. I guess I'm just saying I'm spending less time timeline grading than I used to.
I've done a lot of that with multicam clips where I'll generate proxy media and color correct all the cameras to match, and then edit them already corrected.
Yeah, but even still, that would be nice to have the full every pane of the color correction. Even if you're grading in chunks, it'd still be good.
Right. It's just the way they now have all the scopes in one window. You can put all the scopes in one window.
Yep.
So same thing.
Yeah, I'd also like to see curves and a proper LUT loader.
Curves would be, that would be amazing.
I mean, we know it's possible because Chromatic and Color Finale have them.
Yeah, well, that's why I use it.
Yeah, I think Apple should just buy one of those 2 companies, their technology, and just incorporate it.
I think they should buy Core Melt because then we'd get the awesomeness of Core Melt with an actual usable UI.
Oh, you like Core Melts better? I haven't played. I have played with Core Melt a little bit. I haven't used it extensively.
I had Color Finale for a while, and I bought Pro. I'm not a professional colorist either, but I mean, I do work on every project, but I'm not doing severe grades. It's mostly just correcting. But I found Color Finale to be like really finicky, and you move it like a nano, like an atom, and the color is like super saturated. So I like Chromatic a lot better so far.
Oh, good.
I mean, they both do reasonably close to the same thing. It's just a personal preference. I'm not making fun of Color Finale at all. It's still a solid product.
Yeah, I have both as well. Though I'm not a colorist, and don't pretend to be one on TV.
Yeah.
I got enough. I got Final Cut and I got Logic, and that's enough on my plate.
Yeah, I've been going back and forth between Resolve and Final Cut all last night and this morning, and for the most part, the keyboard shortcuts are relatively similar, but they are a little different. So by the time I get used to cutting in Resolve and I go back to X, then like the disable clips is the reverse. It's like it's D in Resolve and it's V in 10. So I'm constantly hitting the wrong.
You mean editing in Resolve?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
and coloring too, but It's just, you know,
So you're
your
pasting when you
mindset.
want to disable and disabling when you want to paste.
It's just constantly like, ah!
Ah!
Yeah, does Resolve, can you map the keyboard shortcuts?
Yeah, you can map the keyboard shortcuts, and it's
Yeah.
got a lot of capabilities
Yeah.
to go back and forth between different keyboard shortcuts. But I just keep it default, just it's easier, like a switch system or something.
There you go. So what else do you guys want to see in the new version of Final Cut whenever it comes out, which is going to be October?
It's a little thing, but it gets me every time I open a project, and I think it's number one on my list. I don't want my browser to zoom out all my clips every time I launch Final Cut Pro. I've never used that view except maybe one time in the last 6 years.
Right.
I wanted to decide when I want to zoom in. I don't want Apple to decide that every time I have to resize my clips. It's an extra step every time I launch a project that shouldn't.
So what happens now?
You know, in the browser, you can see them in like one thumbnail, or they can get stretched out to 15 seconds, 30 seconds.
Oh yeah.
Every time I open a project, it's expanded all
Browser
the way.
clip view.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's a usable feature when you need it, but
No,
we
you're right.
decide when we need it.
Yeah,
You're right.
great.
The database knows what you had when you closed it. It should save it for you.
Exactly.
You know what'd be interesting too is you know how when you're in list view and you have the icon strip, the film strip above.
Mhm.
Right.
You know, this is, I mean, Avid has been able to do this for a long time. It'd be great if you'd be able to open that browser in the timeline and to be able to see that clip in there and work on it, but it's still affecting the.
Listen.
Sure.
I have it on my list, and
That would be
I call it a clip editor.
Yeah.
Specifically, click on a clip in the browser, and it opens in the timeline to do
Right.
keywording, to do whatever you
Yes.
want to do. Not to edit it like a normal timeline, but just a
Just
clip.
for finer
That was
scrubbing. Finer
Wait a
scrubbing.
second, does that mean you have to set the timeline metrics in the clips now? Because how does it know what kind of
No.
timeline to open it in?
Whatever you click on, it just opens up. It would be a setting.
Yeah, if you
Like
click on a
live.
1080p clip, it'll open in a 1080p
I
time.
know, but I could have 4 projects open, one of which is 4K, one of which is 1080p, one of which
No,
is
it's not a
SD.
project.
It's not a
It's
project.
not a project.
It's just the clip itself that you have
No,
full
I'm
access.
saying you want to click on it in the browser and have it open up. And what I'm saying is, open up into what?
It's
When
the
you-
same as open in timeline.
Open timeline.
Okay.
But you're not. It's really so you can scrub and get a much finer.
It's not for editing,
ability.
Bill. It's
Right.
not for editing. It's for doing browser stuff.
Oh, okay. So you're saying you want to be able to just assess it by popping it open.
Yeah, have
Then-
like a
then-
live a feature where the browser, you click on a clip and it automatically opens in the timeline, not for editing, but for doing keywording, favoriting, more precise. Why not use the full width of the screen rather
Yes.
than just a little
So
film
you just
strip?
wanted to eliminate the persistent info tab, not the info tab, the viewer, and go full screen.
Well, the thing is, why you're not using the timeline when you're in the browser? Why not use it?
Or
I know, but I just-
take that
for me,
film
the-
strip and make it go across the whole. Just the
Yeah.
same thing as that. Just take that
Yeah.
whole film strip and make it expand
All
Expanded view.
across.
the whole.
So you want that
screen.
plus probably Command K, bring up the keywords and be able to zone tag and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
A little more real estate, and I
What
want
I-
to make coffee too.
I know, but I'm trying to figure this out because right now when I'm doing that kind of work, I'm always arrowing up and arrowing down through adjacent clips. So if it's opening up in a different thing, I'm trying to figure out how that still works. Am I coming out of that window to get back to the navigation of the stuff in my Finder?
Seems to me when the browser jumps to the next clip, that next clip would just open up in that expanded view.
Yeah, it'd be live.
But
It'd be
think
a little-
of it as activating the scopes. You know, it's not on all the time. It's on when you put it on, right? The scopes. So
Okay.
something
So
like that.
you
where
want a
activate
full
a window.
clip window viewer that essentially takes the place of that strip at the top in
Film
the
strip viewer.
database view. In the film
film
strip.
strip. Yeah, film strip
Okay.
viewer. Because sometimes you have a long clip, right? And you want to select, you know, like a second or a couple frames of something, and you, for whatever reason, you're not going to do keyboard shortcuts
Okay,
to put it in the
I can see the
timeline.
sense of that. I can see
You want
the
to be
sense
able
of
to
that.
drag that into the.
And you
for
want to be
whatever
able to
reason.
use Command plus and zoom in and zoom out of the scale to be able to get down to a more granular level.
Yes.
Okay, I think
Yeah.
that's perfectly fair.
But I want to stay in list view because of the list view, what it brings to the table for that.
Right.
Okay. Yeah,
And that's
listen,
how-
you've convinced me. I agree.
I hadn't thought of that till now, and now I really want that.
That would be great. You know, that would be wonderful to have that.
I would also like, somewhat related, you know, Bill, you said you did a lot of grading right in the browser. What I don't like is that you have to open up each clip and apply the grade inside that clip. Why can't we just drag a color correction right onto the clip in the browser and be done with it? Why do we, you know, it would save so much time not having to step inside every clip and open the clip in a timeline.
Right.
The only thing I can say, and I'm not sure I'm right about this, but it seems to me that in that metadata flow, right? So metadata comes in, the colorometry metadata comes in, flows from the clip that you imported into your browser. And that's a direction. Now you want to apply metadata that blows off the old metadata, and it seems like it's from your, I don't know, maybe I'm confused about this. Just something went flow. Something kicked off flow in my mind. There's this progression of flow from import into browser, into timeline, into share. And every time somebody gets me going the other direction, says, why can't I just, why can't I keyword in the timeline? And I want to go, well, because you're past that stage. You've already keyworded up here. They're flowing down this way. If you try to add keywords up there, it's like compound clips. You suddenly have to flow against the tide of all this metadata streaming through the program, and it's dangerous to reverse the flow.
Well, except, I follow that, and that makes sense, especially with the keywording, because you'll want to have a tag before it's in your timeline. But I guess for what I'm saying is, if you can select a clip in the browser, open it, and apply a correction, what's the difference flow-wise between not opening it and just dragging the correction onto the clip? Both are having a color correction change, then go into the timeline. Because
I think, and I might not be right about this, but I think you are asking to open it up and not do a sidecar downstream metadata file. So, okay, sequestered clip, which is never going to be touched, it's never going to be changed. Now you've got a sidecar metadata file that is one step below that. Sure. So by trying to toss those back on the original clip, you're trying to change the upstream metadata profile. And I may be wrong about this. I may be overthinking it. It may be possible. It's just a little yellow, not a red, a yellow light going off, going, man, so I got 3 people and they're all tossing on color corrections on this, and who's first, who's second, who's third. Why is this complex? Why don't we just keep doing it the way we're doing it? And I don't know if I have an answer to that.
Well, the Final Cut Pro team's pretty damn smart. They'll figure stuff out.
Totally. And it's an interesting discussion to have, and I fully acknowledge I may be thinking about this entirely wrong.
I wouldn't know to correct you either way. So
yeah, that's the fun of being out here on the edge and talking about stuff that we actually functionally don't know in a coding sense how it works.
Absolutely.
We're just imagining what I'd like, and that's good. Nothing wrong with
it.
We're going to have a good time at the Creative Summit, gentlemen. I'm sure that's the next big event happening for Final Cut Pro.
Are all 3 of you going to be there?
Bill,
I believe so.
I don't think Tony's going to go. We have to do a GoFundMe to get him to come out there.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to. Yeah, if I start walking now, I think I'll make it.
Well, yeah. Plus, like I said, just $40 for the exhibit night. That's the fun night anyway. It's Friday night.
Yeah, just teleport yourself.
What's the what is it? It's from like a Thursday to a Sunday, or what is it?
No, it's
you have
Friday.
To arrive Thursday if you want to do the Apple trip on Saturday or on Friday.
Well, they changed it, Bill. When I originally told you they were doing it in the morning, they changed it now to the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so you have an arrival day that you can switch. You can arrive Friday morning and still get there every day.
Early Friday. I think 9 o'clock they start now. Maybe 10. Maybe.
Oh,
10.
okay. So you really can't fly in and just go to the whole thing.
You can, but I'm coming in Thursday.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I thought the reason, because I originally thought, okay, I'll be there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And then I realized I had to book a room for Thursday night because I had to get in before or I would miss all of the.
Well, when I originally talked to you about that, Apple had their presentation in the morning.
Okay.
And I was saying if you come in Friday morning, you're going to miss the Apple presentation. Now they've changed it to the afternoon for whatever reason.
Okay, so they put the Apple presentation in the afternoon, but there's still content in the morning. So if you want to see the whole thing, you really have to come in.
The keynote is like at noon.
Okay.
David Tillman.
Oh, yeah. David's a great guy.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, gentlemen, you're convincing me. Let me see what I can do here.
It's a fun weekend. It really is.
It'll be my first time.
The thing about it's all Final Cut in motion, a little bit of motions, the whole weekend.
One thing that's going to change a little bit this time is that in the past, the the presentations, the circumstances were very close to the hotel or in the hotel. Now I think we're a little bit away, and then
Yeah,
I
it was
hour
at
walk, I
AMC
think.
theaters.
that AMC theater. So I think there's going to be less of the we're all hanging around the hotel all the time chatting.
Well, they weren't all the time. Usually it was a morning and the afternoon because everybody had to do presentations.
Right. But I'm just saying that, for the people
Yeah.
who want to do Airbnb and keep costs down and stuff like that, it's this balance between, do I stay in the actual convention hotel and how much is happening?
Sure.
And all I want to say is I think there's a little piece of we're going to be gone from the hotel probably a
Yep.
little more than we
Oh
were in
yeah,
the
absolutely.
past.
Yeah, we'll be at the AMC all day, except
Right.
Friday night. The exhibitors ball is back at the hotel,
Yeah.
and there's some event Saturday night. They're calling it a networking event. That's probably going to be back at the hotel as well because they're probably showing movies at nighttime, right?
I talked to Bradley Olson about Off the Tracks.
Right.
I helped fund the thing, so I've been on like a chat thing through Kickstarter.
Sure.
And he said he was going to try to go, and that he's going to try to arrange to get a special showing of that one of the nights at the event. But that if that can't happen, maybe he'll just gather a bunch of people in a hotel room and we'll watch it there. So
Well, I think
I know you're like have a direct connection with them. So
Yeah, we talked about that, and he was saying something about they were saying something about Sunday night. I said no, refuse Sunday night. That's a ridiculous time to have it. It has to be Saturday night.
yeah,
People are going home on Sunday night.
I won't. I'll be there till Monday, but anyway, it would be really fun to see that thing, or even just an extended preview of it.
It is that it'll be an extended preview. It's not done yet. It's going to be like 90 minutes, but I think he has about 30. I think he showed 30 minutes at IBC, the
Nice.
last cut that I saw. So
Well, I have a question. So when you go onto the Creative Summit website and you're looking at the schedule of events, maybe it's been a long time since I've been in school and I forgot how to read graphs, but you've got like a block of color and it'll say, 11 to 12:30, and they've got 3 events. Is
Yes.
it like the one after another, or you get to
No.
choose which one?
you have to choose which track you want to go to.
Oh, a couple of those are tough choices then.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Has anybody talked to the guys at FMC? Has anybody
I
talked
do.
to Jeff and see if they're going to be recording anything this year?
They are not.
Okay, so again, it's one of those.
Well, because it's everybody has, last year I recorded the sessions, but they weren't recorded for broadcast. They were just recorded to have B-roll for the documentary. And I'll probably do some recording again. But they're not broadcasting them live. They're not recording them for later. I mean, unless they change their mind, it's just they're not going to do that.
Yeah, it's just because look, having worked with the FCP Works crew on those recordings of all the NAB stuff for 3 years in a row, it's a big undertaking to
Yes,
do
exactly.
professional level recordings. It's a big, expensive undertaking. So I understand they're not doing that, but there's also IP circumstances that have to be cleared, and that's really kind of a small nightmare. But it's just too bad because I'm in the same place you are, Gabriel. I can see where, I really want to go that, but I would really like to watch that one too.
Well,
And you're a little bit stuck.
unless they change their mind, that's what they've done. Now, I may go ahead and record them again as well, but I can't just put them out without their permission. So
No. I agree with you 100%. That's not right. I'm just wondering if you can only be in one room with your iPhone.
it'd be my GH4, GH5, whatever I have.
Okay, so you can only be in one room with that, and that means 2 rooms aren't recorded.
Right.
So anyway, this is probably not a sensible thing. You probably have to edit this out of that. But the question is,
No, I understand. I understand. What
off the official.
I mean, look, we're
What
live
if we
now.
found
So
somebody who was willing in each of the rooms to stick up their iPhone, and we eventually could get them all concatenated into someplace in an informal way?
no, I understand, but it's the same thing as IBC. They didn't do it at IBC. They recorded them, but they're going to come out later.
I know they're not recording them here, but if what you were able to do at NAB, which is just stick your phone up, and then nobody objected, so you were able to put it out on the internet. I'm not saying put it out on the internet because of these
No, I
IP
understand.
issues.
I understand.
But can we just, for ourselves, organize somebody who's going to be in each of the sessions and say, hey, bring something small, put it on the desk, and just run it. Doesn't have to be professional. Just let's capture the content of all these sessions. Because if somebody goes, "Oh my God, you should see what the demo was amazing," and then going, "I was 2 rooms over, I never saw it."
All right. Well, that's a possibility. You have to check with them, FMC and the individual person doing the presentation.
Yeah, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to keep it, even
Simple.
just talking about it, I'm trying to keep it down low. I'm not trying to create products that interfere with anybody.
Right.
I'm just saying it would be nice to be able to leverage some of the content that I can't see and get a look at some of it if I'm interested in more than one thing happening at the same time. I don't know. I don't want to make this formal. I don't want to get anybody in trouble.
Yeah, you're not. Well, gentlemen, I think we're gonna finish up here. We've been on for over 2 hours. Some of us.
Yeah, my clients are. I got to get back to client work.
Oh, you got work to do. What's
Yeah,
wrong with you?
Take a
All right,
break.
all right, gentlemen. I'll see you guys again. I'll see some of you at the Creative Summit, and Tony, I'll talk to you again.
Sounds like a plan. Y'all have a good weekend.
Adios, one and all.
See you guys later.
All right, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.